Hey, everybody. I am a grateful and enthusiastic member of Codependents Anonymous. My name is Ritchard, and I'm codependent as hell.
Hi, everyone. I'm Karen, and I'm a grateful member of CoDA.
And we're here to talk, as you just heard, about promises 9 and 10, and a couple of things that we need to kind of get out of the way before we get into this. Notwithstanding the safety and crosstalk statements that you just heard, the way we approach this is not a meeting. We're going to talk a little bit about, I'm going to talk a little bit about Promise 9, and then Karen may have some stuff to add, and then we're going to turn to you with some questions. And what we're trying to cultivate there is a conversation, which means that we're asking specific questions, and we're not inviting you to share your experience, strength, and hope. We want to hear what you think. We're looking for an honest dialogue there, and we may interrupt you in order to seek clarity or to leverage something that you said into a new direction. So please keep that in mind as we go along. After we've done that, we'll have a little break. Anne's going to give us a 5-minute notice before that break. And then Karen's going to talk about Promise 10, and I may have some stuff to add, and we'll have some more questions. And then at the end of the whole thing, we'll stick around for a little bit for a question and answer period after everything closes up. Everybody got the plan? Perfect. Okay. Before we start into anything like this, I, in particular, but both of us like to do a particular prayer. It speaks specifically to the nature of my illness. It's called the set-aside prayer. So if you would indulge me, please. Higher power, help me today to set aside the things I think I know. Help me to set aside everything I think I know about you, everything I think I know about myself, everything I think I know about other people, and everything I think I know about this program. Also that I can have a new experience in you, a new experience in myself, a new experience in these, my fellows, and a new experience in my own recovery. Thanks for listening. I had one more thing that I wanted to add there.
You probably did.
I probably did. It'll come to me later. Okay, so let's dive into this. Oh, yes, that was what I wanted to add. The stuff that we're going to read today comes, for those of you that haven't been here before, comes from a series of draft essays and study questions about the promises for a booklet that I've been working on, and Karen's been helping me with, and we've been kind of using these sessions as feedback and an opportunity to fine tune what goes in there. So understand that by participating today, you're helping us work on this. And I'm not at all sure what happened with that. Okay, there was a poll. So let's start with Promise 9. Promise 9 says, I acknowledge that I am a unique and precious creation. Low self-esteem is often the starting point for our codependence. Because we lack our own esteem, we seek esteem from others. As we chase the esteem of others and get ever more desperate for someone else's recognition or approval, we engage in codependent patterns that further damage our self-esteem. Often, we find ourselves in a downward cycle of approval seeking driven by low self-esteem. The low self-esteem is in turn aggravated by our approval-seeking behaviors that are motivated by low self-esteem, and so on and so on. It's a vicious cycle. Our CoDA friends show us a different path. It starts when the members of our CoDA group treat us as valued members of the group. They see value in us, so we begin to suspect that we may have value. There's an old saying in recovery circles, if you want self-esteem, perform esteemable acts. In CoDA, we work the 12 steps, and we try to practice the 12 traditions in all our affairs. We make amends where we've caused harm. We engage in acts of service not for any reward, but because it's the loving thing to do. At first, we may show up early to meetings to set up chairs because we're trying to earn our place in the group. Eventually, we do it simply because we feel good about ourselves when we do. Nobody else needs to see or to be involved. Some of us, prior to recovery, felt odd or different. In CoDA, we begin to appreciate the value of being different. After all, the old timers tell us if any two of us were identical, one of us would be unnecessary. We find that the principles we are practicing in the 12 steps and 12 traditions allow us to channel our unique nature, which are our unique character, into productive and useful paths, and we begin to embrace our uniqueness. Eventually, we realize that we are both unique and precious. That's the essay. Now, for me, what I can tell you is that I felt different all my life. Right? I was firmly convinced that the world was divided into two groups. Right? One group was me, and the other group was my family, my friends, my acquaintances, and everybody else on the planet. And there didn't seem to be any way to get from one group to the other. And what that did for me was it fed this drive to fit in, to try to be part of, and I became hyper vigilant. I would watch the people around me. I would watch you so closely, trying to figure out what you were going to do next, so that I could do it so closely behind you that it looked like I was doing it with you. And I saw myself as unique in a bad way. Nobody else has ever felt the way I feel. Nobody else has ever done the stupid things that I've done. Nobody else has had the crazy thoughts that I have. And we sometimes refer to that as being terminally unique, because eventually it'll kill me. What happened for me was I ended up in Codependents Anonymous, talking about feeling that way and discovering that I was in a room full of people who were all unique the same way. And that cracked the ice for me. One of the things that I heard in CoDA that has become really important to me, and I had the opportunity actually to talk about it with somebody today, is the phrase, identify, don't compare. The idea of looking for the similarities and not the differences, to recognize that while the details of our stories are different, that the feelings are the same, the principles are the same, and the solution, by the way, is the same. When I first got introduced to the promises and I heard Promise 9, I mean, it just sounded corny. I mean, it still kind of sounds corny to me today. I am a unique and precious creation. Just, you almost have to laugh, but at the same time, it's become true for me. I've learned that unique doesn't mean better than or worse than. It just means different, but not a bad different. I am unique because nobody else can take my place. Precious simply means of great value. That I have value in and of myself that I didn't know was there before. And that's been a result of the recovery work that I've done in Codependents Anonymous. I've learned to actually use Promise 9, to use it to reinforce the things that I learn and practice in things like Tradition 2 and Tradition 9. Where I go out to try to be of service to my fellowship, and I step into a service position. I don't have to do it exactly the same as the person who was in that position before. It's okay to do it different. And I've learned that I can make a contribution without needing the recognition. That lets me practice Tradition 8, that idea of doing that next right thing without a price tag, for fun and for free. Do you want to add anything to this?
Promise 9. When I would read Promise 9, I would kind of read it initially with, I am a unique and precious creation. I hated the way that sounded. I just hated it. It sounded so corny, right? Until I actually start thinking about it, right, and getting into it. I too, when I came into program, I felt lonely, separate, different, and afraid, terminally unique. Nobody could possibly understand what was going on in my mind. it was coming into program and hearing my feelings, my thoughts reflected back from those sources that I didn't think would understand, and they were the same feelings, different experiences, and that was incredibly important to me because it gave me a sense of identification. It helped me to believe that maybe I belonged somewhere. I too felt very different within my own family. It's like we had our family and everybody else, but at the same time, I didn't even feel a lot of times that I belonged within the context of my own family. What the Promise 9 does for me when I look at the concepts of what's behind Promise 9 is to accept myself as, yeah, but you know what, I am unique. I am a very special child of God. I love that prayer, or that mirror visualization, as I prefer to call it, that I learned many, many years ago, that simply goes along the line of Karen, you insert your name, you are a precious child of God. God knows you, loves you, and cares for you just the way you are right now. And so do I. I love that, because by internalizing those thoughts, I get to say, you know what, I am different. And that's fabulous, because my higher power has actually created me to be that way. I am a very precious child of God, and I have gifts and I have value. In the line of work that I was in a number of years ago, I felt really uncomfortable and unworthy of going in and examining people's books and records is what I was doing at the time. Because I had this quirky nature and I thought I wasn't professional enough, and wasn't presenting myself in quite the right way. And what I came to see through prayer and meditation and concepts such as Promise 9 is that I actually have value, and I have a unique gift to bring into that situation. I ended up having, what I would do before I'd go and visit my clients is I would pray. I would have wonderful conversations with my higher power, and I'd place the situation in my higher power's hands. And when I got there, I can honestly say I had amazing experiences, totally, completely amazing, and some of the best experiences of my life. Some of those business visits, I was glad I didn't have any of my managers there with me, because it wasn't uncommon that I would be sent away with a hug, which is, might not be professional, but I connected with the people on a soul level, because I was able to turn myself over to the care of my higher power and ask God to do with the situation what was intended to be. That was a very unusual way of dealing with this scenario on the job. But I am a unique and precious creation, and God made me this way. So if I'm placed in a work situation, a family situation, or whatever, then my higher power is going to bring how my higher power has created me into that situation, and can be used for the better. God can use whatever gifts he's given me for the betterment of the situation and everybody involved. It's a very different perspective, but I'm a unique, precious creation. So let's find out what you guys think of Promise 9.
I love that idea. Like, how many of you have ever been tempted to hug your government representative?
Yep.
It doesn't happen very often. Okay. Sorry. I just broke her anonymity a tiny bit. So I love being able to use Promise 9 to remind myself that I am a unique and precious creation, and therefore it is okay for me to be different. It is okay for me to do things differently than you. It is okay for me to think differently than you. And by the way, it's all right for you to think differently than me. So we do have some questions for exploring Promise 9, starting with what's the difference for you? And have you come to the difference between feeling unique and feeling different? Have you transitioned from feeling different to accepting your uniqueness?
So feel free to put up your hand and we'll just call people in order in which the hands are put up.
It reminds me of the scene in Life of Brian where we're all different, not me. Okay. So we now have some hands. When we talk about the traditions, one of the things that we sometimes talk about is treasuring each other because we see each other as precious. And a big chunk of practicing Promise 9 is to look at that same way about ourselves. I'm just going to rephrase the question to try to turn in that direction. So have you been able to embrace your difference in order to be able to enjoy your uniqueness? Think about it maybe from that perspective. I think you hit on a couple of really, really important insights there. I mean, it is a tenet of what we do around here, that what someone else thinks of me is none of my damn business. And it's so important for me to continue to remind myself of that. But the other one is that idea of giving yourself permission to embrace your uniqueness. I think that is maybe one of the biggest obstacles that most of the people I know in Codependents Anonymous have with Promise 9, is that they've got to get over that hurdle of actually giving themselves permission to feel good about being unique. What do you think, Todd?
No, I think
Okay.
you covered it.
Okay.
You know, what that brought up for me was a related concept. I completely relate to what you just shared. I love the concept when I'm being really judgmental and I'm being harsh toward everything, is to bring in the acronym HALT, like hungry, angry, lonely, tired. And I need to stop, because I found myself doing that this morning. I'm tired. And I discovered by just listening to me is I'm not feeling well today. I'm really off. I am. And so, but, I was doing that, judging everything and I just wanted to say, I just want to cry. And it's like, well, honey, are you hungry? No. Are you angry? No. Are you lonely? No. Are you tired? Oh, yeah. And how are you feeling about, so exploring those concepts, that concept of HALT is so important. It helps me to get out of judging myself and others. And sometimes I just need to go to bed.
Well, and some of what you said, if we circle back to that idea of giving ourselves permission, and I mean, another way of looking at that is to actually accept ourselves, accept our uniqueness, right? And acceptance is the key, of course. But until I can accept me, exactly where I am, who I am, how I am, what I am, nothing else is ever going to be good enough, ever. And therefore I can't accept any of you, I can't accept any of this, and that's the life I get to live. And so a big key to that is to be able to accept my uniqueness and embrace it. Okay, if I can accept me for my uniqueness, what that does is it allows me to accept other people for theirs. And when I combine that with the other things that I learned here, especially things like Tradition 4 and the spiritual principle of autonomy, and Tradition 1, the spiritual principle of unity, what that means to me is that someone else is different. Okay. That's just absolutely okay with me. When I'm thinking it through in a more evolved way, recognize that, you know, the human race is not some homogenous blob. We think of it more as a mosaic. And I really do embrace that idea that if any two of us were identical, one of us would be unnecessary.
What brought the tradition that came to my mind when you were asking that question was tradition 9, actually, for me, and that embraces the concept of flexibility. When I came into program, my thinking was incredibly rigid and I didn't even know it. I had no concept that, you know, my version of white and black was the version of white and black, and what was right and what was wrong. And I had no idea that there were a whole realm of colors, the rainbow of colors in between that. And what this program has allowed me to do by accepting who I am, I can accept, I've actually learned to accept me more by listening to other people, particularly through doing step 5s with other people and hearing what they thought was so terribly and terminally wrong with them, that it's like, I can accept that in you. And it is helping me to accept my uniqueness, which in turn helps me again to accept other people's differences and uniqueness. So getting back to tradition 9 for me, it's about flexibility and learning that I am a unique and precious creation. I actually can say that without using the "I'm a unique and precious creation" voice most days, not all the days, but I can do that for other people too, and just start to see them for who they are, especially when we have that opportunity to actually talk heart one-on-one, because I can see from your perspective who you are, and I get to get a glimpse of your world. That's all. I don't know if that helped any.
I would like to hear some thoughts on this question. And that is, what tools of the program have you used in order to either embrace your unique nature or to recognize your own value? You know, inventory work has helped for me. You know, sponsorship has been crucial for me. Not just having a sponsor who can talk me through my own convoluted thinking, but being a sponsor and watching myself being of real help to somebody else without thought of reward, without being that manipulative guy who was helpful as hell, but only because he wanted to have those favors out or wanted to manipulate those people. You know, here we do it for fun and for free. And I like that about me. This booklet that I'm working on has an entire section devoted to that idea of using the promises as tools in support of our recovery. So thank you for mentioning that. I really like the metaphor that opens up, that if we're each going to be active participants in our own lives, and in effect, that makes me an artist painting on the palette of my life. And I'm interested to see how that turns out. That idea of progress, not perfection, is so key to being gentle with ourselves. And until we can be gentle with ourselves, we're not going to be very accepting of ourselves. So thank you. I think we're going to talk some more about that in Promise 10, but big one for me is just asking myself the question, is it true? And being able to, if it's not true, just ignore it. And if it is true and I don't like it, maybe that's a call for me to do something about it.
One of the things that are helpful is to realize that if I have been informed of something, that maybe it's somebody has something to say to me about me, or there's an event in my life that took me by surprise, right? And I feel as though I've been hit in the gut, because that's often how I feel when I become aware of something that I was maybe in denial about, or it might be just their stuff, but it's hurled at me. Is initially I'm going to feel as though I've been hit in the gut, and realizing that and being able to say to myself, and it's okay, Karen, and you're going to have some feelings, and you may have this feelings for, used to be maybe a couple of days. And I describe that as kind of feeling as though I've been pulled underwater and I cannot breathe. But I'm going to come up back to the surface and I will be able to breathe. But accepting that for a day or so, guess what? I am going to have feelings. And what can I do around self-care? And self-care may be, watch a movie, call my sponsor, go for a walk, call another person in program, have a cup of tea, pet my dog, whatever it is that soothes me, right? And giving myself permission sometimes just to cry. Because there's an adjustment process if I'm incorporating new information or if I'm contemplating on that, and not being harsh, because in that moment, what I need is for myself and to feel as though I've been loved and heard. And sometimes it's self-soothing that it has to come from me and my higher power, and reaching out to other people in the program or other things that I find helpful is what I need to do at that particular point in time. That's what I do.
All right, we're going to turn over to the committee and come back after the halftime show.
Hi, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the song and had a relaxing few minutes there to yourself. We're going to continue now with Promise 9. I have a sheet in front of me that says Promise 10, and I don't know, apparently my mind is still on 9, but I'm going to accept that. Promise 10, I no longer need to rely solely on others to provide my sense of worth. If I didn't have low self-esteem, I wouldn't have any, quips one CoDA member. In the past, we often had no sense of self-worth. Our behavior was dictated by a need for someone else's approval, and we adopted patterns of behavior that were harmful to ourselves and others. We couldn't be honest about our thoughts and feelings with others. What if they were the wrong thoughts and feelings? We couldn't set boundaries. What if someone else didn't like our boundaries? We couldn't look after our own needs. Someone else's needs were always more important. Often we bankrupted ourselves emotionally and physically, if not financially, trying to buy someone else's approval and acceptance. In CoDA, we gradually build our self-esteem. Our progress through the 12 steps and our work in applying the 12 traditions contributes to a sense of self-worth that we may never have experienced before. We gain self-respect by practicing the principles of Tradition 4, autonomy, and Tradition 7, being self-supporting. We begin to realize that our opinion is just as important as someone else's, Tradition 2. Ultimately, we grow to realize that our opinion about ourselves and that of our higher power are the only ones that really matter. We can separate ourselves from the need for someone else's approval. We know that we are worthwhile and important, just as we are. Before recovery, many of us cling desperately to the approval of others for our sense of worth and well-being. We grow in our recovery and come to realize that it feels good when others approve of us, and that's okay. We enjoy that feeling, but we are no longer dependent upon it. So the promise once again is I no longer need to rely solely on others to provide my sense of worth. And for some reason or another, when I was reading that right now, what I was reflecting on was a relationship in my family of origin, where I have a particular sibling that sort of pulled a lot of weight in the household that I grew up in. And for some reason or another, I wanted this particular sibling's approval, love, and affection, which was, of course, the exact one that was very challenging to get her approval, love, and affection. And I would just contort myself, and try and do whatever I thought that she actually would approve of and would find her acceptance. It took a long time to realize that my opinion about myself and what I do and what I choose not to do is more important than what she thinks of me. That concept that we heard from, I guess, the last, from Promise 9, what other people think of me is really none of my business. I love that concept, I truly do. And learning to value, again, is to talk with my higher power and learning to value who I am and how God has created me to be. That my sense of self-worth needs to be grounded and focused on centered within me rather than other focused. Otherwise, I'm just blowing around in the wind and susceptible to other people's thoughts and opinions without direction. So that's what I have for that at this particular moment, Richard.
Well, I talk a lot in this fellowship about my experience of despite massive evidence to the contrary, not being able to hold on to the feeling of being loved, and the dynamic that drove in my life of an insatiable desire to try to fit into that constantly seeking approval and affirmation and acceptance, and what that meant first and foremost is that like a lot of codependents, I could be absolutely paralyzed by the thought that somebody somewhere might disapprove of Ritchard. And one of the patterns of codependence that we read to newcomers talks about how codependents compromise their values and integrity to avoid rejection and other people's anger. And I lived on that. That idea that I know it's wrong to lie, cheat, and steal, but my drug of choice is 5 minutes of someone else's approval. If I need to lie or cheat or steal in order to get there, I become a liar, a thief, and a cheat without thinking about it. I mean, lying was my stock in trade. I would lie when the truth would suffice. Apparently, just to keep in practice, I guess. But what's happened for me is that I've learned to listen to criticism without being paralyzed by it. I've learned to accept that idea that what someone else thinks of me is none of my business. Most of the time, and I refer you back to the previous discussion about progress, not perfection. Right? I am not well. I'm just getting better. But most of the time these days, I get to act on my values and my oh God, lost the word. Basically, I get to do what I see as the right thing without having to worry too much about what other people are thinking about it. And that is important to me. I can tell you that it has been some time since I last had that experience of watching myself lie. That experience of an untruth coming out of my mouth, going, in my head, what the hell are you doing, Ritchard? The truth would have been okay here. Why are you? And now I'm stuck with the lie, and I got to back it up. And it's been a while since I've done that. I honestly cannot remember the last time I did one of those. And even the idea that often happens to us in recovery, where I will see the lie coming out of my mouth and catch myself going, oh no, that was a mistruth. This is the truth. That's the 10th step in action for me. And it's probably been a couple months since that one, which is a very long time for someone like me. So that's what I have.
Oh, I can so relate to that idea of having a missed truth coming out of my mouth and catching myself and just saying, nope, nope, that's actually not the truth. This is, you know, I was just about to lie to you. And it's okay to do with program people because they get it. But try that with someone who's not in program and they look at you as though you have three heads. It's kind of fun. So we're going to go on to some questions. The first one is, do I need others to validate my feelings, opinions, or accomplishments? And that was something I can certainly tell you that for me, if somebody didn't validate my accomplishments, I felt I didn't accomplish anything, or if, regardless of what I did do, it wasn't good enough. You know, it always felt so much better to have somebody else validate what I did. And I still have to actually be aware that I'm still prone to that. Being able to step back and say, you know, that is something that is still true of me. And why am I bringing this particular thing out and mentioning it to other people? Is it because I still need to be validated? So does anybody have any thoughts on that? Do you need others to validate your feelings, opinions, or accomplishments?
Well, we're waiting for hands. I'll just mention that, you know, one of the most powerful tools or little exercises that we give around here is that idea of doing anonymous good deeds. And, you know, there's a part of me that the minute I do an anonymous good deed, I want to find somebody to tell about it because it doesn't count if nobody knows. And that's the thing for me. The challenge is to get to the point where it doesn't matter if anybody knows.
Now, one of the things that I was raised with was being a human doing rather than a human being. And it's really hard to actually shift the focus for me to my sense of worth being a part of who I am as a natural, just being alive, rather than what I can do, what I can accomplish.
You know, there's a variant on that I'm not sure it's actually healthy, but it's fun. And I think it's healthier, is the idea that the true test of someone's intelligence is how strongly they agree with you. And I like hanging out with smart people.
These gifts that our higher power has given us.
Well, and what happens too is that when we let go of what other people think, we stop second guessing ourselves. We can be more confident in our choices. Yeah, we tell new people all the time that anything we do can be healthy or unhealthy. It all comes down to what's our motive.
Mm-hmm. Being able to stand back and look at that motive is very, very important. And for me, it took a while to even realize that I could do that. Right? As basic as that sounds. And, you know, not saying I was the healthiest little puppy. That idea of my giving from a place that I have to give from. You know, often I'll be giving from a place that's just empty and dry. And many years ago, through program, what I've learned is when I'm giving to other people, there are 4 very important questions that I need to look at. And 1 was my help asked for. 2, will it be appreciated? 3, was it necessary? Is there something they should be doing for themselves? And 4, can I afford to do this physically, financially, emotionally, and spiritually? And I need to go through those questions on a fairly regular basis because I still find myself doing things or giving my time or talents or whatever it is from a place I don't have to give from. You know, so those help to refocus me and look at things from a healthier perspective. So we're going to move on to another question. Does my self-approval carry as much weight as the approval of others today? Why or why not?
I think that's an ongoing process. That the important pieces for me have been the first step and the third step. You know, the first step, admit that I'm powerless over those other people. I'm powerless over their attitudes, their behaviors, their opinions. And therefore, I need to recognize that if I'm going to pursue approval at any price, I'm surrounded by the kind of people where that price is going to go up. And sooner or later, it's going to be approval at any price is a cost that I can't afford to pay. And the third step, I'm trying to do things the way a loving higher power would have me do them, but I don't think a loving higher power would have me subjugating myself to the approval of others. And so those two pieces hand in hand, little by little, have allowed me to let go.
I always find it interesting to find out who it is that I'm actually seeking approval from. There's some people that apparently are more important to me, and I want their approval more than others, and being able to stand back and actually just appreciate that and go, oh, I'm doing that again, aren't I? And then I have choice, but I have to be aware of it first. You know, that idea of awareness, acceptance, and then action. I have to be aware that I'm actually seeking somebody's approval before I can do something. So I apologize. It's 3:57 Saskatchewan time, I guess 2:57 Arizona time. And that means that we are very close to having to close here. I want to repeat the 4 questions. We had a request for that. So I'll repeat those 4 questions, and then we can close this meeting. And those of you with your hands up, if you'd like to stay and chat for a little bit after we actually close the meeting, we have a few minutes to do that, if that's acceptable. I'm seeking your approval.
Just a reminder that the 4 questions are in the 12-piece relationship toolkit booklet.
Yeah.
Right. Go ahead.
And they are: was my help asked for? Was it necessary, or is it something they can do for themselves? Will it be appreciated? And can I afford to do this physically, financially, emotionally, and spiritually? Okay. So with that, I want to thank everybody for coming today. It's been a really good session. I really enjoyed the shares and just the chats. Yeah. Do you have any closing things that you'd like to say?
Just that I personally can stick around for about a half an hour. Karen can speak for herself.
Part of the tradition.
Yeah.
He can't speak for me.
But then I have to bolt. I have another service commitment. So